It looks like new GM Jim Tanner's connections are going to lead immediately to Carolina's first portal commit of 2025.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. Hopefully Roy Williams isn't retiring again today. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listen or watch to get your Tuesday going the right way. Special shout out to all of you everydayers who are here with us, the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, and of course, all our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on the show today, we just keep rolling with portal business because that is the news that we talk about right now this time of year, because Carolina's got to put a roster together and they got to get talent, they got to get shooting, they got to get size, and that's where we're headed. We will look at Elliot Cadeau, who made his decision and maybe threw some jabs at the Tar Heels on the way out the door. I'm not down with that, Elliot. We'll talk about that. Also, there has been a flurry of activity in the last, essentially yesterday, Monday, really, and Sunday. Part of that is because of something that's coming up later this week. I'll explain that and just kind of look at the lay of things. But the first place we got to get to is somebody that we had heard rumblings of over the weekend. I thought about including in Monday's show, but now it's time to go ahead and lead today's show with Kanon Catchings, a BYU transfer who was in the portal after initially being committed last summer to Purdue, getting out of that, wound up playing his freshman year at BYU. I'll unpack all of that here in just a second. If I'm Kanon Catchings, here I am at BYU. I'm 6'9", I play the 4, and I'm sitting there looking at things, and I'm going, you know what? I don't know why I just looked at my watch when I did that, by the way. If you're listening to this, you have no idea I did that. But those of you watching, you're like, Isaac, why did you look at your watch for? I don't know. But Kanon Catchings looks at things and he realizes, I kind of fell out of favor in the BYU rotation down the stretch of the year. And who's that guy that's coming in? Oh, yeah, GDTBATH, the number one player in the entire class who's phenomenally, ridiculously good. Oh, and we play the same position. So maybe I should go find somewhere else to play. Can't blame you at all, my dude. I would probably be doing the same thing if I were in your shoes. So that's, to me, what leads to Kanon Catchings stepping out from BYU. Now, I mentioned a Jim Tanner connection off the bat. Now, remember, Jim Tanner is Carolina's general manager, the new guy just in. You might have heard like, hey, Kanon Catchings has a connection with Jim Tanner, and that is true. He does. So Jim Tanner was a longtime agent for a lot of high level basketball players, one of whom is great the WNBA great Tamika Catchings. And you just heard the last name, right? Yes, Tamika is Kanon's aunt. He is her nephew, and Jim Tanner was was her longtime agent. So there's this natural family connection that's been going for years, and reports are, I either read this, forgive me, I can't remember if it's Tar Heel Illustrated or from Inside Carolina, but basically the reporting is that as soon as Jim Tanner was on campus, he was identifying Kanon. I think part of that was because early in the year, he was starting at BYU and really fell out of the rotation as the season went on. And so it was like, yeah, I'm probably out of here. Plus GDTBATH, right? Like it's a whole thing. And so there's this whole basketball lineage for Kanon that, when you look at Tamika and other stuff, but every other people too. His mom played at Illinois. She was a WNBA draft pick. His grandpa Harvey played 11 seasons in the WNBA. The big connection, though, obviously, is Tamika, who was a who is, I guess still, it didn't go away. She is a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. She was the WNBA MVP in 2011. In 2012, she won the WNBA championship and was the finals MVP. She's a 10-time All-Star with the Indiana Fever. She was the WNBA Rookie of the Year in 2002. She won a national championship in 1998 at Tennessee and was the National Player of the Year in 2000. So, I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff with that. So, as you look at landing spots for Kanon, obviously, I think some of those other schools are in play as well. Tennessee, where his aunt Tamika went. Illinois, where his mom went. Sure, those are some obvious connections there. But with the Jim Tanner of it all, Carolina seems to be a very natural fit. And a lot of the buzz, at least as of Sunday and Monday, is that like this seems like a very likely probability. And that's what's out there right now. So as you look at Kanon, there's the connections. There's the I'd got to get out of BYU. Looking at him, he's a 6'9" kid, so he's got great size, great positional size. And that's, we've been talking about like Carolina has to get bigger. Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's bulky, but sometimes it's height. And that's what Kanon seems to bring. My question, though, is where does Kanon Catchings fit? Some of this is going to depend on personnel decisions, i.e. Drake Powell. Because Caleb Wilson's coming in as a power forward, a 6'9", and is probably going to be your starting four, right? We have to look at that and see what all happens. Sure, great. I understand that. But that's a lot of where Kanon Catchings would slot in. And if Drake Powell sticks around, you're not going to have him not starting at the 3 unless Kanon just beats him out or something. And so this makes me wonder where Kanon Catchings fits if those two things are still true. Because he's the kind of ilk, he was a top 40-ish kind of prospect, right around the 40 range there. He's not somebody that's going to be like, I'm going to go somewhere where it's not guaranteed that I'm going to start, right? Like, I think he's probably going to be looking for a place where he can really, really get a ton of time coming off a year where he didn't down the stretch of the season. No, I don't know that. I've not talked to the kid. I don't know what's in his heart, but in this transfer portal era, you want to go where you can play. And I would too, right? Like it's about getting reps. You want to get reps, you want to get film, you want to do all that. And I think that's a good time then, as I say that, to bring in the Purdue of it all. So he was initially committed to Purdue. And then last summer, before the year even started, asked out of his commitment and was granted it by Matt Painter. But a lot of it was basically the reporting is that he either wasn't pleased with what his role was going to be or didn't make sense or something of that nature. And so it wasn't like if a coach leaves, sure, whatever, but Matt Painter's Matt Painter. He's one of the greatest coaches in America. What are we talking about? And Matt Painter made it a point after this to not talk too fondly of the situation, and understandably so, but I gotta admit, I got some pause with that, right? Like it is a level of concern. But I will say it in the same breath. I get it. At some level, I get it. Because imagine this with me. Let's say he stays at Purdue, gets there, and is just buried on the bench and doesn't play behind Trey Kaufman-Renn or Cam Heide or Caleb First, whoever it is. And then he ends up transferring after his freshman year anyway, after a disgruntled year at Purdue. So to that point, it's like, okay, I can understand that. Why not do it now instead of waiting a year when I'm not playing? And he went to BYU, and yes, he didn't play much down the stretch, but he started a lot at the beginning of the season. So there is a level at which I can sympathize with it, but I would like the full story, right? I would like to know the ins and outs, and we're not going to get those because Matt Painter's too classy of a guy. He's not going to bash him publicly. He'll speak constructive criticism, that's not a phrase, but you know what I mean, of him. But that all is a thing. He winds up at BYU in his freshman year, started the first 15 games, played in 31 of BYU's games. He moved to a bench role with less playing time in favor of more experienced players like Maywat Mag. For the season, averaged 7.2 points a game, 2.2 rebounds, less than an assist a game, and shot 35% from 3 on 4 attempts a game. That's a good number. Not crazy high volume, but enough. and a strong 3-point percentage. Like the closer you get to 40, the happier I get. But I can live with 35. What's odd to me is he's a bad free throw shooter, 58.7% this past year on just 1.5 attempts a game. Could be a small sample size thing, but whatever. But he DNP'd in 5 of the last 7 games of BYU season, meaning did not play. And in those 2 games that he did play down the stretch, he scored a grand total of 2 points in 9 total minutes. Now, you have to look at the scenario at BYU and really just understand it wasn't just about, like, BYU got on a heater down the stretch of the season. That, in many ways, coincided with him going to the bench and playing a smaller role. But there were other shifts, too. For example, Yegor Demon. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's this great NBA prospect at BYU, a 6'9" guard. They made some changes to get him a little more off the ball at times. And so, you know, it wasn't just, I say that to say it wasn't just Kanon going to the bench. And that happens sometimes, right? Like in the course of a season, especially with a freshman, it's hard, man. And in that Big 12, it's difficult. And so I'm not out on him because that happened. In fact, for me, I'm kind of at the point where I think it's worth taking a shot at him. He's got great talent. I am curious to see if he can be consistent. He wasn't always consistent, but he's a freshman, right? But I don't want to just take people blindly. I want to look at how he fits. Because what have we said over and over about this team in 24-25? Roster construction was bad. So how is he going to fit? And it's hard to, all you can go on is what you got on the roster right now. And you don't know about Drake Powell. You don't know about Ian Jackson. You don't know for sure on Van Allen or Seth. I mean, it seems like maybe they'll stay, but we don't know that with 100% certainty. And so for Catchings, you know, he's had some great games. Probably the best game of his freshman year was 23 points at home against Baylor, 8 of 8 from the field. 4 of those were threes. Perfect at the line in that game. I think he was 3 of 3. So he can do stuff like that, but he's got other times when he doesn't. So can the Carolina coaching staff find that consistency? Because I think in the way so many of us are being triggered right now by the transfer portal, we're triggered by inconsistent basketball players because that's what happened to this team all season long. And I can't go through that again. And you can't go through that again, right? So there is all of that. So we'll watch it and we'll see and find out. He is a rising sophomore, so he's got 3 years of eligibility. One of the things you want to do is find NBA level talent that's not ready to go to the NBA yet. And Catchings fits that description. You want to bring that alongside of a solid roster. We don't know yet what that solid roster would be because we need a center, we need point guard, we need shooting guard. But I think at this point, you don't have others yet. So I think it's worth taking a shot at his talent. Does he affect winning in multiple ways? I'm not sure yet. I haven't been able to fully discern that. But he's got size and he can shoot. And so it's probably worth taking a chance. You know, like it's like diversifying your stock portfolio. You want to spread it out a little bit, see what hits. Because in the transfer portal, some do, some don't. And that is what it is. But again, this dude is 6'9". He's got some good size to him positionally, athleticism. He's from Brownsburg, Indiana originally, but he played at OTE last year. So we had great professional preparation and training, scored almost 14 and a half points a game, 5.7 rebounds in that stretch. And so, you know, lots of possibility with Kanon Catchings, but that's the latest transfer portal name that I want to get you to know a little bit and prepare you for. So I say, let's get him. Let's make it happen. There's going to be, because when I lay these out, I want to give you pros and I want to give you cons, and there's going to be warts on everybody, and there's going to be, I don't know, beauty on everybody as well. And you just got to figure out what you can live with and what you can't on your basketball team. Well, there's a whole flurry of college basketball transfer portal action going on this week. I'll explain why coming up in just a second and get you ready with just a few of the other names that are on the Carolina radar and contact and all that right now. That coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Monarch Money, have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, hey, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. What's cool is that Monarch Money isn't just like a budgeting app. It's a complete, comprehensive financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Like instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check everything, finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. My wife and I, we always want to make sure that we're on the same page when it comes to financial things. And thankfully, Monarch Money, with that, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared accounts, you can track personal accounts, you can set goals, you can find ways to stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. That's a great deal. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Just imagine this with me, watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments, or maybe there's just like a big sporting event that's like on your bucket list. You got to get to it. There's one upcoming this weekend. There's nothing like experiencing that in person. And when you're getting tickets to those moments of life, it shouldn't be stressful for you. That's where Game Time steps in, and I love it. They make it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. They also have a feature. It's called Game Time Picks. It's a curation thing that helps make it easier to find the best value on tickets for things like sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. I just checked the Game Time app literally before I started recording, and there's several amazing deals on this weekend's games. Maybe you want to go hate watch a certain team from Durham. And when I look at this, you can get tickets to all three games, the two semifinals and the championship game on Monday night for as low as $347 for all three of those games. You could go to just Saturday's semifinals for as low as $280, or maybe you just want to go to the championship on Monday. Right now, that's sitting at $131. Keep watching it throughout the week, though, because usually as you go closer to the event on Game Time, those prices go down. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, I don't know about you, but Monday was overwhelming. And to set the context, I was in Dallas for our last weekend of recording our Amazon Fire TV channel's Bracket Breakdown series, which is just some studio shows that we're doing in my Locked On College basketball role. And I wasn't just all the show prep we're doing, the recording, all that. I'm not really able to keep up with the transfer portal stuff that's happening in real time. And so I get in the car service to take me to the airport, and I start looking at our Locked On College or our Locked On Tar Heels Discord. I start looking at a couple other Tar Heel groups I'm part of, and you guys, was so overwhelming, like wild, how many people were entering into the portal on Monday. I don't know what, some of it is my team just lost over the weekend. Now I'm doing it. For some, it was just like, hey, now's a good time. But part of that is that there's a dead period coming up starting, I believe it's Thursday of this week. So 2 days from now, ahead of the Final Four. There's like a Final Four dead period, basically, where coaches aren't allowed to reach out and make this initial contact or even not even just a fit initial, but any contact. It's got to come at that point from the players or families or their agents or whatever it is. And that's fine. They can do that. And then it'll hop right back open. Now, that doesn't change anything with entering the transfer portal or committing or Zooming, but it's got to come from the student athlete or family or agent or whatever it is. So with that flurry, there are a whole bunch of other names out there. I went through and grabbed quite a few that I'm like, yes, I want you, right? Like that kind of thing. But there's several that have been updated by a multitude of sources that have done great job sourcing these and bringing them out. Obviously, Joe Tipton does a great job with that. We had him on the show recently. Inside Carolina does a great job with that. Tar Heel Illustrated does a great job with that. Like the official Carolina podcast, Carolina Insider, they don't really do anything with that just because, it's icky because they're official, Carolina employees and they got to be careful with it. So I do want to give you 4 names, and we're going to go deeper on these on another show unless they commit somewhere else first. But one of the big names that seems like this one could be going in a great direction is Henri Veesaar, who played at Arizona, funny enough, this year. He's a big 7-footer from Estonia, which makes me think of Encino Man. Anybody ever seen that movie? I love it. Also, my neighbors, who are part of my small group through church, they have a young man, a foreign exchange student who's Estonian. And so I've been telling him about Veesaar all season long. And I'm like, dude, now he could be a Tar Heel. And how fun would that be? Anyway, so we'll talk about him. I think I'm going to lead the Wednesday show with Veesaar. So buckle up for that. A really interesting one is Jacoby Gillespie. Maryland, if you didn't follow them this year, they had a starting 5. It was kind of like the Iron 5 where they played the majority of Maryland's minutes, didn't get much of anything off the bench. They called it the Crab 5 instead of like the Fab 5. I love the moniker. But Jacoby Gillespie was their point guard. Love his game, undersized a little bit, so we got to talk about that. But he's another one that I want to do a full segment on. So we'll either do that, probably segment 2 tomorrow, or maybe part of Thursday's show. Then there's Silas Demery. I've been waiting on it. I've been pushing it back a little bit because there's not been. I was hopeful for news of some connection between he and Carolina, and we got some of that on Monday. Now, part of this is that he was on a trip up to the Northeast on Monday, and today, Tuesday, he visited St. John's and Rick Pitino yesterday, and they got a couple commitments. Actually, was it on Monday? In Pop Isaacs, who is a Texas Tech transfer, he was injured all last year, and then Bryce Pope from Providence, who's been injury bugged a little bit. He's been having trouble, but and then he's at UConn today. Silas Demery is. But then the word is that after that visit, he's going to connect back with Coach Davis, and that is good. I mean, I just think he would be a great addition to Carolina's roster, regardless of what the shape of it is. And then the final I want to mention is Jonathan Powell, who just finished his freshman year at West Virginia, had a visit with Ohio State on Monday, I believe it was, but also mentions from Joe Tipton that he is going to have a Zoom call with Coach Davis. So, and that's another guy with some size. He's like 6'6", but a shooter. And so there's some interesting potential with all of these guys. And so, Jacoby Gillespie, I mentioned like his lack of size, but if you compare him with bigs, bigger positional guys, I'm more okay with another, smaller guard. But I wouldn't prefer it, but I think he's got a lot to bring to the table. Now, a couple big picks. So again, I will do a segment on all 4 of those guys. I promise you that, unless one of them commits somewhere else first. At that point, I'll just mention it, but I won't do a full segment on it. Now, speaking of which, I should also say here really quick, I've had several people reach out to me asking like, Isaac, could we do a segment on this portal guy or this portal guy? Happy to do that. So if you want to, please hop into the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, share that name with me. If you're one of the Locked On Tar Heels insiders, I always prioritize those requests from you. And so do that. By the way, great plug for that. If you want to join the Locked On Tar Heels insiders, where you get direct access to me and access to all of my stats, my charts, my data, my record book that I curate and create myself, you get free access to all of that, all these portal rumors. That's where I drop them in first. But anyway, if anybody has suggestions of people they want to hear about, please drop those in. Got a great one in a Washington transfer on Monday evening. Now, there were a couple names that were in the portal that people kind of buzzed about a little bit that have committed elsewhere or removed Carolina from consideration. So just wanted to mention that. Noah Williamson, the big from Bucknell, committed to Alabama, of course, on Monday. I feel like he's a little bit of a Grant Nelson replacement. Grant Nelson's going to be out of eligibility. We'll see there what that is. Bucknell, who was it was it Kansas they knocked off in the tournament one year? Like 060, somewhere in that range. I need to look that up later. Somebody check me on it. Let me know. And then the other one is Malik Renew, the Indiana transfer. He's a front court player. Removed Carolina from his finals list. Honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. I never really liked him all that much at Indiana. So I say, yeah. And it's not like Carolina was involved with him really anyway. But still, he's a name that people threw around. So I just wanted to say it off the board. Again, fine by me. So, guys, we will get back to more specific, more segment-long player stuff on tomorrow's show. But just wanted to give you, I felt like there's so much movement on Monday. I was like, let's just take time and give just a big picture general update. Obviously, no commitments yet, but I feel like there's potential that Kanon Catchings might be able to do some of this pretty soon. the Veesaar stuff seems interesting to me, like it can move quickly. Also, keep in mind, I forgot to say that because of that dead period, a lot of guys are trying to get visits scheduled or make calls and do all this stuff here in these next day or two before we get to Thursday. So you might see even more of a flurry of activity today as well. Now, coming up in the last segment, Elliot Cadeau commits to Michigan on Monday, but did he take shots at Carolina on the way out the door? We'll look at that in just a second. Right after I tell you about Supply House, get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, whether you're in HVAC, whether you're in electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products for any of those specifics online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from more than 400 top brands, you're going to find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Do you need help with an order? Well, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always get to talk to a real person. And for trade pros, you're looking for an extra edge? Let me tell you about this. Supply House has a thing called the Trade Master Program. It's free, and it offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. That's awesome. So thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master Program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Again, that's supplyhouse.com. It was announced on Monday by Elliot Cadeau himself. I guess I should add on his Instagram page that he was going to Michigan as his transfer portal decision. Kind of funny. Remember the Caleb Love incident where he tried to go there? Things didn't work out. That's why he ended up at Arizona, which wasn't on Caleb, by the way. It was on Michigan's kind of very odd admissions things. But it is kind of funny that now Elliot's going there, and hopefully it works out and he doesn't have to go off somewhere else. But that would be pretty funny if the same thing happened to Elliot that happened to Caleb Love. Anyway, Elliot announces this on his Instagram page. 247 put out an interview that Deshaun London did with Elliot. And what was interesting to me, it's just such a weird time. Like, I think for fan bases, when guys transfer, I think there's some hurt feelings. I think for guys like Elliot, who I've mentioned, from literally just from the comments that come to me on social media, on our YouTube shows, on in anything, I feel like the fan base is pretty divided on Elliot. Just pretty polarizing. And I think some of that is let's just be honest about the lack of consistency when it came to things like turnovers and foul issues. Look, just to be frank and statistically based, Elliot had the most turnovers in the ACC this year. It is the thing. But good grief, the things he can do, his ceiling, his shooting when he does shoot it, good. Like, so much great capability. It's tough. And also, though, I think fan bases are learning to accept the transfer report. Like, I feel like the first year or two, there was just anger, just outright anger directed at these young men and young women on the women's side when they would transfer. But now people are becoming more accustomed to it. And it's like, we're going to lose people, but we're going to get people, right? The portal taketh and the portal giveth. It's a whole thing. But what was interesting is I feel like the players all support each other. And I think I kind of like that. So on Elliot's Instagram, Seth Trimble commented, "I love this. RJ, go be great, gang. Armando Baycott, we in Ann Arbor with it." Simeon Wilcher, which is kind of funny because he decommitted when Elliot committed and is at St. John's now. He said he just put a bunch of fire emojis. Jalen Washington said odd with a bunch of D's. I didn't. Okay. Greg Powell said checkmate. And Caleb LaValle, former Carolina linebacker who transferred out, said, "Go be great, twin." So all this interesting stuff. Now, the thing that drew a lot of attention was in Elliot's interview with 247, there was a quote in there that says this, quote, "The Michigan coaching staff really believes in me and knows what I can do. I want to play in an offense that best suits me and my abilities with the correct players around me so we can all win." That's not very veiled, is it? I mean, multiple things here that are like clear shots across the bow at Carolina. There is no subtlety here at all. I mean, it is laid on pretty thick. So 2 specific things I guess I would mention. The part of the quote that says, I want to play in an offense that best suits me and my abilities. The insinuation there, I'm coming off of 2 years of playing in an offense that doesn't best suit me and doesn't best suit my abilities. I mean, bro, just be a little, have some tact. Be a little veiled, Elliot, right? Like, I'm not mad. It's just like, it's not a good look for you or for the university, right? It's just, it feels petty to me, if I'm being honest. The second thing, the second part of this quote, with the correct players around me so we can all win. And the insinuation here, I did not have the correct players around me at Carolina, and we did not win. Well, you were a 1 seed in your freshman year, and I think you had the correct players around you. I agree with you about this year's team. It was not great roster construction. But that's a shot at Carolina. How else am I supposed to read that and take that and interpret that? And in this day and age, it is not wise, nor is it in your best interest to burn any bridges. Because, like, let's go back to Kanon Catchings. I don't know if there's a world where he could go back to Purdue now. Maybe. But it just doesn't feel like that ended well with all sides. Man, if I was in this position, I would be doing everything I could to maintain every relationship I could, because you don't know who you're going to encounter or re-encounter. You know, if I'm Dusty May, the head coach at Michigan, I've got at least a little pause with this, because then I say, what's up with that, Elliot? I know you to be an emotional player, sometimes letting it get the best of you. And you're saying this about your former team and squad. I happen to like Hubert Davis. Thank you very much. You know, like, I just don't know. I don't know that I would feel great about that if one of my incoming players was saying that about his old team. That's tough. Now, I get it for Elliot. He's been treated pretty badly. I mean, but so are all the rest of these players. They're all getting crap in their DMs and to their face. And I'm not condoning it, but it's a thing, man. It's we all got to be better, by the way. Like, it's pointless. As for Jalen Washington, I've still not really heard any specific, him being connected to any schools, really. I mean, there's some rumors of it, but nothing concrete or solid. I just hate it. I hate that he has to go, that he feels like he needs to go, but I think it's the right move. I said it when he committed or entered the portal last week. I think it's the right move. I wish Carolina had realized that more capably last off. Like, I sat here this last offseason and said the same things as stuff was changing. Yeah. Good luck to you, Jalen Washington. We'll miss you. You too, Elliot. Like, I don't like Elliot saying these things, but I'm going to miss it. Like, you become part of this family, and you will always be part of this family, even with, I get it. You're hurt right now. I can excuse that. All right, guys. So we'll be back again tomorrow. Right now I'm leaning towards leading that show with Veesaar, maybe Jacoby Gillespie out after that. And maybe on Thursday, getting around to Silas Demery, and the kid from West Virginia as well. I want to spread that out so we get just to know each of them a little bit and see if they might be good fits. I'll give you my takes on it. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. If you've not subscribed to the video already on YouTube, go ahead and do that so you don't miss a single second of Locked On Tar Heels. If you've not joined our Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you over there. That link's in the show notes. Great big family of Tar Heel lovers, and that are just in there all the time. Not lovers that are Tar Heels, but people who love the Tar Heels. And then also the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders. I mentioned that earlier. Great thing to come and join. We'd love to have you there. That link is also in the show notes to go next level with our show. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We're going to get this roster figured out, you guys. I promise you it's going to happen. It'll come together. And if not, there's a whole other host of problems that our organization may have. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.